Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. For those who don't know me, I am John Israel. I'm a partner in Foley & Lardner's New York City office, one of 21 Foley offices across the US, 24 globally. We have about 1,200 attorneys practicing in a broad range of disciplines that you would expect to find in a general service law firm of that size. And I'm the co-chair of the firm's Sports and Entertainment Group, which is a multidisciplinary team of attorneys with significant experience in the sports and entertainment industry, with several of us having spent time as in-house counsel at various professional sports organizations and entertainment companies. We like to say, as outside lawyers, we bring a unique insider's perspective to the work we do for clients in the space. I myself spent about 8 years as an in-house lawyer at the NBA and have watched with great interest the launch and publicity surrounding NBA Top Shot, a blockchain-based platform that allows fans to buy, sell, and trade as collectibles specific officially licensed video highlights as NFTs. And there's been lots of press surrounding the NFT sale, for example, and resale of a limited edition LeBron James dunk highlight as an NFT. And then just looking today at the Top Shot marketplace, I see that NFT is reselling currently for $250,000, having sold a couple of months ago for $210,000. But of course, NFTs are not limited to just sports memorabilia, and they can be used to sell and trade unique intangible and tangible items like virtual sneakers and digital art and music. And the NFT possibilities do seem limitless. And indeed, a few months ago, I read an article about an artist who, with his friends, began recording audio clips of their farts over WhatsApp during the pandemic and then started selling those recordings as NFTs. And I guess I never imagined I would be discussing that topic in any formal presentation as a lawyer, but I'm doing it here because I think the example captures a certain absurdity that seems inherent in the concept of NFTs and the current NFT phenomenon, but it also underscores the perception and the very reality that NFTs are a money-making opportunity and big business, and we are seeing serious money and investment flooding into the space. And we began getting involved in NFT-related projects, and it became clear that attorneys across our firm were dealing with a variety of legal and business aspects of NFTs, some novel, some not so novel, from technology, patents, and platforms to crypto and blockchain, smart contracts, investment opportunities, property rights and ownership and securities regulations. And things are moving very, very quickly in this space. And there are a host of legal risks for stakeholders who want to be and are involved in the space. So it's plain that NFTs will never be confined to just one legal specialty. So happily, here at Foley, we have a breadth of experience and expertise to cover the range of issues on the subject. So we've created this informal NFT group that includes attorneys from a cross-section of our practice areas and industry teams, including technology, transactions, investment IP, and sports and entertainment. We meet regularly, we support one another in ongoing projects and work. We analyze the latest developments, and we've been publishing thought pieces and doing podcasts, all of which you can find on our website at foley.com. I think we truly are a virtual one-stop shop for NFT-related legal needs. And the program today was hatched by that same NFT working group. We had a great time putting it together, and we hope it will be the first of others to come in this really, rapidly growing area. So today we start by taking a broad view of the NFT landscape, examining the business considerations, underlying technology, ownership in both a contractual and intellectual property sense. And the program really is jam-packed. So I'm going to step aside. I'm going to turn it over to my Foley colleagues and their incredible lineup of guests who will share their insights and firsthand experiences in the world of NFTs. So thank you again for joining us. And without further delay, over to you, Louis, for segment one. Let's get going.
Hey, good morning, everybody, or afternoon, depending on where you are. And we are broadcasting live from anywhere. We are absolutely all virtual, remote, and thrilled to have hundreds of folks registered for this program. As we get started, I wanted to set the stage about how all of this NFT marketplace came to be and why we think it's getting such traction and liftoff today. And obviously, the digital asset marketplace has really just skyrocketed since the outset of the pandemic. Here with me to talk about it is one of Silicon Valley's leading entrepreneurs and thought leaders in the area of digital assets, and that's my good friend Walter de Brouwer. Walter, can you please introduce yourself for a moment?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Louis. Yeah, I've been in my background is in computer science, and I like financial engineering because now basically, finance is computer science. I was involved with Bitcoin from the beginning. The cryptographic aspect appealed to me, but also I come from a long time ago from the open source movement. And we knew that elites of this world are what they are because they control information and they control the printing of money. So the control of information was long lost. Now the printing of money in the second decade of the 21st century, became basically a reality, and with Bitcoin. And so with that, that created an enormous range of possibilities and opportunities. And one of these is, of course, now NFTs, we started with currencies, then NFTs, now decentralized finance, structured products in decentralized finance, it's basically giving a lot of control in the hands of the people.
Walter, we'd love it if you could turn your video on so people could see why you're wearing sunglasses, because of course the future's bright and you need sunglasses when the future's so bright.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Perfect. There is Walter on top of the Silicon Valley. I love it. So before we dive into NFTs, Walter, you first started talking to me about Bitcoin in 2014 or 2015, and I'd love it if everyone could use the Q&A box or the chat box and type in whether or not you hold a digital asset in your portfolio of assets, and if so, which one. But Walter, why is it that Bitcoin moved up from pennies to $10,000 3 years ago when I first started to hear about it, and then now I think last week it reached something like 55,000 before falling back down to 34,000. To what do you attribute that boom in pricing to Bitcoin?
Yeah, well, it came from 62,000 at some point. So it starts, of course, always. Every new thing starts at the periphery. Like with very technical oriented people, think the internet started in my time with bulletin boards. We believed only electrical engineering and computer science would ever use it. But then, mainstream comes and, it becomes something else because we put so many layers on it that everyone now can, a 4-year-old girl can make a website. And so the same is actually happening with cryptocurrencies, now. More and more, and Robinhood with their 2 slogans, that is no fee and never sleep, took a new world of millennials completely in that started to invest, and they invest in very irrational things, like in banking we have learned that we have to be rational, like we are allowed 1 irrational decision per day, but that's it. So that is now happening with currencies also. Of course, institutionals get in because where can you make now, a good return? Like it's Warren Buffett is probably, has been wrong for the last 10 years, but he said one thing right. it is damn difficult to make money on the markets, like, because
you just nailed it, and you just nailed it. And my theory is that with asset managers all working from home as well, the government pumping up stimulus into the market, you can't get yield or on in the debt markets, and so we're seeing bubbles in numerous categories of assets, and digital is just really taken off during the pandemic. I'd say that here in the Silicon Valley, San Francisco, and in New York, we also see a boom in decentralized finance products as asset managers work remotely and seek yield. We've seen a booming marketplace of digital asset derivative creators in Southeast Asia and Northeast Asia, Korea and Hong Kong. And we see at the same time as this has happened, Walter, that there's a segment of the digital economy that's totally lost so far, and that's the musicians and the artists whose works used to be monetized by buying a CD or buying an entrance ticket to a museum or an exposition, and now with the internet, all of that, the price has gone down to pennies on the dollar of where it used to be, and so you see these big losers in the digital revolution looking to win and enter the NFT. And Walter, what is a non-fungible token?
Well, a non-fungible token, the easiest way to explain it, actually, I talked to, Insomnia and all these big people who buy, who sell tickets for concerts. The easiest way to explain an NFT is it's a ticket to the opera, you get that ticket on your phone, and that ticket has 5 unique features, and that makes it completely unique, which means non-fungible. So fungible means that you can exchange it with something else. So first of all, it is the opera house, it is the location, like San Francisco Hearst Theater. It is the performance, Othello. It is the time, 23rd of June at 8 in the evening. And it is the seat number. That makes it completely unique. Now, can you sell that ticket? Yes, you can. Because a lot of people buy tickets when they just come, and then, you see them outside, or you can buy them on eBay. Is it a security? Of course not. Like if I buy a house and I flip it, it's not a security. If I buy a painting on Christie's and I sell it to the guy next to me who should have, wanted to bid but didn't and then came back, it's not a security. So all these things now go into the artist's world. And it's the artists are, finally seeing something that they can make some money, because now artists live on aid from government, most of it, I'm not talking about.
Let me just stop you for 1 second. Well, can an NFT be a picture? Can it be an audio recording, a video recording? What is contained in this non-fungible token? What is the content?
Yeah, so the non-fungible token has, the easiest way to explain it is, how we buy paintings. We buy paintings because of 2 things that we are, actually 3 things, first of all, the provenance. The provenance says who owned this painting. Secondly is the catalogue raisonné. It gives us okay, this painting is in the catalogue, because if somebody comes to me and he says, I have an unseen Van Gogh and with no provenance, yeah. So, that's, $100, and then there is a report from the expert to see if the paint is. So the same is actually that proof of ownership you can put in the digital world. There are people now who buy parcels of land. They buy houses to put on these parcels of land in worlds like Somnium Space or Decentraland. You can buy your own world there with the sea, with mountains, and then you can start building your city. And now already in games, for instance, in Grand Theft Auto, you can buy. There is a sort of a Zillow on Grand Theft Auto to buy your own apartment or your own house, and very soon it will probably be custom made. We can go to artists, architects, well-known architects, Frank Gehry or so and say, make me a house, a digital one, a 3D one, which I can put in Grand Theft Auto, and then I'll have my Zoom meetings there. The people will wait in the lobby. I'll show them my house, my digital paintings, and I'll go into the meeting then. I'll talk to them, and they will be there as avatars. This might be very far away, but it's only 2-3 years away now because of 5G and 6G coming.
Walter, you are an amazing entrepreneur. I've had the chance to work with you only on several of your ventures, but you've done so many. And as you look at the NFT marketplace, who are the players required to create a successful NFT?
I think so. It must be a win-win. And that's what people don't see it yet. So, once you become a bit older, you are no longer doing zero sum. So you do, because win-win lasts long. That the artist, the manager, the copyright owner, the government, for tax or, if it's, getting a regulation, all these, they have to be all in it. And that means, and because we work with smart contracts in currencies and in NFTs, we can put that all in the smart contract. So, if $100,000 comes in, the exchange takes 15%, $15,000, probably $3,000 go to the manager, $2,000 go to the copyright owner. And every time that in a secondary market that piece of art is sold, all of these people get a fraction of that money. Also the artist, because now, like an artist sells a painting for $10,000, Warren Buffett will call it value investing, persuading people that it is not worth anything and then sell it for a lot of value. In that case, the artist will always go on. He has a sort of a subscription to his creativity, which is a complete new channel of income for an artist. And for estates of artists, of dead artists, and for family offices of artists, like everyone sort of sees like, instead of suing people for breaching our copyright, there is a whole new way of making money, and where that money will come in.
So, Walter, you have curated, therefore, a library of content creators who are looking to monetize their product. You have created, with your team of engineers, a smart contract and a platform. Where do I then take that smart contract and put it up for sale? And then how do I denominate the currency by which I sell it? Is it just sold in US dollars? Is it on the blockchain? Is it purchased and sold with Bitcoin or Ethereum? And where does this NFT live? Sorry, complex question.
That NFT lives on the blockchain. And then, as you know, there are several blockchains, but, you can basically, like with Etherscan or with another scan, you can look at the blockchain where the proof, the stamp, the timestamp and who's the owner, mostly a cryptographic address. But you are now on most exchanges, you are doing it with cryptocurrency or a conversion of cryptocurrency, and you need a wallet. So it is attractive for Generation Z and millennials and people who are in crypto. It is not so attractive for baby boomers. And, for bankers, only baby boomers are important because they still have 70% of purchasing power of the market. And the baby boomers are not in because of several reasons. First of all, they don't want to, they've come to a time where they think I'm not going to risk too much, so I don't want to risk of this, that regulation will come in and destroys my assets, or this is too technical, I'll wait a bit until there are so many layers on it, and I just want to do fiat on ramp, so dollars, and all the rest I don't care. I want to buy like I buy a painting in Christie's, and that's they have to, I'm not going to that world has to come to me. And I think that is going to be the big promise of NFTs.
You've brought me to a great segue. Where is it? Let's say I've found the content, I've built my smart contract, I've connected my smart contract to one of the various blockchains, so it has a place to live. Where do I go? What is the marketplace? Is it Christie's and Sotheby's? Is it the New York Stock Exchange? Is it Coinbase? Where do I go to purchase my NFT, hold it in my wallet, and then let's say in a year's time when it's doubled in value, I want to sell it? Where do I go, Walter?
Yeah, I think so. There are three markets. Like the first market is the legacy market, where you take your very high-priced items, and that is Christie's, Sotheby's, and Phillips. You auction it off. So the auctioneer adds 20% to the buying price, and then you come into what you would call a primary market. You have that NFT somewhere, and so you have bought it. You are in the primary market. When you want to sell it, you're going to the secondary market, and so you don't have to build a smart contract. Basically there is one like huge smart contracts who builds all the other smart contracts, and you go to a website, and at the same time when you click it, it is minted. You don't have to. Well, that's what we are building. I want to do the Wix of NFT, or the TurboTax, so that they don't have to. Otherwise, the baby boomers will not come.
I love it. I love it. Walter, you've built so many businesses, and I'll leave it to you to decide to talk about your current projects or not. But what do you think are the indicia of success? What is required for our audience to really capitalize on this moment in time where NFTs are really taking off? We definitely see there's a market. Some have seized the moment and created the market. I think Dapper Labs has created Top Shots and has created a healthy market in trading NFTs regarding NBA players. Although I note that they were sued last week in New York State Court, alleging that there was a security. And for those lawyers in the audience, the issue about security is whether or not one of these smart contracts constitutes an investment contract. An investment contract is one of the indicia of being a security, which is regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission. And there's a four-pronged test about what is an investment contract. And the allegation for many of these digital assets is that the proceeds of the sale of the digital asset is used towards the creation of the marketplace, and therefore that renders it an investment contract and a security and a regulated asset. I think it's too early to tell what the outcome will be. My personal opinion is that Top Shots are minting NFTs that are not securities, and that Dapper Labs will prevail in that lawsuit. But Walter, as you look at how to create an NFT marketplace, what are the indicia of success? What are the mistakes to avoid? Obviously, you don't want to be a regulated security. Any advice you can share with our hundreds of guests here today?
Yeah, well, so what I've always, and I also tell that to my students. So it is very easy to be creative in an illegal way, rob a bank, or of course now you don't rob a bank anymore, everything is computer science again. But being creative and successful in a legal way, that is that is reputation. So in 2016 I created a company called Doc AI, which is now going public soon. And as you know, Louis, you were my lawyer. So we raised an ICO, which was an initial coin offering. Then we had, because we thought that there is something like vertical money, and this could be used for healthcare. And as it is actually now used in HSAs and FSAs and debit cards. But we had talks with the SEC, and they could not guarantee that their enforcement arm would not come down on us. So basically, we gave the money back, which actually took a lot longer than raising it. I believe that is one of the main things that, doing it in a way that nobody can get back on you, and that the government must guarantee that you are doing something within the law. And if they can't guarantee it because the law is not there, then, you have to go out of the country. And that's what most exchanges do. They live offshore,
Walter, thank you so much for joining us today. Before we hit our next segment, I would love to hear from you your last parting shots and as what do you see on the horizon for NFTs? Fast forward 1 year, 5 years, 10 years from now, what is the future of NFTs, Walter?
Yeah, well, I would like to quote George Soros. I always like George. He said, whenever there is a bubble, I'll rush into it. He also said, first I invest and then I investigate. What he means by this is that this may be a bubble now. We don't know when it is a bubble and when it is not a bubble. But when bubble bursts, give it a year or two and they come back. And the one who has then, bought, everything in a very deep dip, that bubble will come back. I don't know if this is now going to burst. There is a probability that it might be, but these assets will be on the blockchain and they will come back. It's the same with, I bought a lot of Alibaba. I'm still waiting for Jack Ma to come back, and I think the same is happening with is going to happen with NFTs. As you will see now, I predicted that Bitcoin would go to 30,000, after which, everyone will buy Bitcoin again. And where does that money come from? From institutionals, but also for all the other altcoins. So that means all the other altcoins are going to crash. And so that means if you now buy Bitcoin and then, you leverage against it, and when the altcoin crash comes, you buy altcoins, then, in a couple of years. So that's basically your trust fund.
Walter, thank you so much for joining. We are so excited at Foley and Lardner to be working with a number of really smart entrepreneurs who are coming at this NFT marketplace from a number of different avenues, some from the content space, some from the technology space, and some from the marketplace. And as we segment into our next portion of the program, we're going to talk about smart contracts and programming codes and legal agreements. And my partner, Andy Lee, is going to join that discussion. Andy, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Louis. Thank you, Walter. It was great hearing from you. It was really insightful. My name's Andy Lee. I'm with Foley out of our New York office, and I am with John Israel, who introduced us, part of our sports and entertainment group. And I'm here with, I have with me my friend and colleague Vandal, who is the founder of someone needs to mute, I guess, but Vandal is the founder of DAO Records. Sorry, can you hear me? Vandal's the founder of DAO Records, and he's been working in the NFT space for quite a while now. Many of us have only recently started hearing in the mainstream about NFTs and smart contracts. But what we are hearing is, I think, showing us there is tremendous potential here for this technology to really transform the way a lot of different businesses operate. Obviously, we're hearing a lot about it in the collectible world, art and music, and those types of things, but there really is that potential here. Walter and Louis were talking about the smart contract aspect of the NFTs. And Claire, you can go to the next slide if you want now. It's when we think about traditional, business transactions, many of us, when we think about a contract, we think of an agreement. It's not always, but typically in writing, and it's something that sets forth the rights and obligations of the parties to the agreement, the contract parties, and also governs their relationship going forward. The smart contract, technically, in an NFT, is not quite that, although it has the potential to be that. So that's a little bit of what I wanted to talk about here. The term smart contract is generally recognized as having been coined by Nick Szabo back in the mid-90s, who described it as a set of promises specified in digital form, including protocols within which the parties perform on those promises. Szabo's concept was, I think, based on and thinking about the notion of distributed ledger technology, or DLT, which is the foundation for blockchain. A DLT is a decentralized database, basically, through which that's managed by multiple computers, multiple participants, known as nodes, spread out across the country and, frankly, the world. And blockchain uses DLT technology to effect transactions that are secure by virtue of cryptographic signatures and other features on the blockchain. One of the more famous iterations and first iterations of blockchain technology is, of course, Bitcoin, which itself is a limited version of a smart contract, but it really all it does is execute transactions. So it's a form of logic that when the transaction happens, everyone on the chain knows what happened. They're all looking at the same thing. And they can confirm that everyone else did, that the other parties to the agreement did the same thing without the involvement of any third party. So that's a bit of a breakthrough there for the Bitcoin world and the cryptocurrency world. It evolved with the advent of Ethereum into something more than just executing logical progression, because Ethereum introduced a programming language that would allow basically anyone who can basically code or has an understanding of coding to record their computer programs in a way that can make them be automatically executed. And that's where we get into the notion of smart contracts, because there's more on the chain than just the actual transaction. The interesting part about it is, well, one of the interesting parts is that the logic of a smart contract can't really be distorted. It's very black and white. It's ones and zeros on some level underlying the code. There's no room for interpretation. And of course, interpretation is a big issue with traditional contracts. There's lots of litigation over it. There's lots of time spent negotiating precise language of contracts to see to try to write it in a way that means the same thing for both parties. In a smart contract, that's not the case. You don't need a judge to figure out what the contract means. It's written, the code is executed, and it happens. So this is why they're referred to as contracts, but in another sense, they're not contracts in the sense that we think of ongoing business relationships. So, now from when Szabo started, it was, it's 25 years ago. We're now hearing all about smart contracts. Read a quote the other day from one of the founders of Ethereum, who actually, he said he regretted adopting the term smart contracts for Ethereum. It was actually something that he tweeted. I should have called them something more boring and technical, perhaps something like persistent scripts. And I think what he was getting at there is what I've been thinking about when I've been hearing smart contracts. How are these going to transform relationships among counterparties beyond the scope of simply a transfer of ownership? Which is the foundation of the NFT. There are other aspects of the relationship that can and should be incorporated. So, Vandal, to get to you and your world, I'd love for you to introduce yourself, but to talk a little bit about how long you've been doing this and how you, as a someone in the world of NFTs, your record company is built on it, and I know you have other endeavors as well in this space. Where do you see the concept of the smart contract beyond the code in terms of how it establishes and defines the relationships between people entering into these transactions?
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate you for having me here to share perspectives on NFTs and to also share a bit of our story at DAO Records. And, I think like a lot of people from the creative space who have found NFTs, whether that's like recently or, over the past year plus, since, the development of some of the early platforms to mint artworks and then later on other forms of creative content, a lot of what's been happening has been experimentation. And, with any new technology at the innovation phase, which I think we're still in for NFTs, is that, how can we use this for our purposes? So from the music angle, when I entered the space at the beginning of 2020, specifically discovering or rediscovering NFTs through crypto art, it was like, okay, well, how can we get music on these things now, right? And through the development of that, we've worked with various platforms to implement MP3s and other audio content to connect with the smart contract and the metadata that's stored, whether it's on chain or whether that's a private server, is debatable between what people prefer, but is really about trying to discover what these smart contracts or NFTs can do for us as creatives, and how we can innovate on them to sort of carry over not just the traditional side of how music contracts would work and the release of music, say, whether that's for streaming or physical with the royalties, whether it's mechanical royalties or what have you for the NFTs, is also how we can innovate in ways to make it easier for the artists to connect to this technology. And that's what we're exploring with DAO Records. And it's really cool to see, like, you talking about Nick Szabo and the language and the wording behind contracts and really how that relates to the legal implications of how we execute these contracts and the way that we talk about them with each other. So, we were chatting yesterday about that, and certain things that can't be necessarily coded in terms of what are in the contracts themselves that are very sort of person to person, or expectations of things that aren't as tangible in the written or coded form. And that's what I'm interested in exploring now as we're evolving. Sure. Yeah. So
where do you see that? It seems to me the smart contract in that sense, there's potentially three different versions. There could be a purely computer code contract, right, which is written in whether it's Solidity or some other, whatever computer language that is written in. And that's the very black and white, X to Y, ones and zeros. Or you could have an agreement that is purely natural language written out someplace, or some combination like a hybrid where you have the NFT with that computer code smart contract, but there's also a set of conditions or descriptions that are somehow attached or incorporated into it. And sometimes that's important as you're doing things that govern an ongoing relationship. For example, a lot of business deals involve somewhat, concepts that can't necessarily be determined on chain. I know sometimes smart contracts can utilize an oracle, which is an external source to confirm whether something has happened. Like, I don't know, if your plane is leaving late, right? They could use your smart flight delay insurance contract could be linked into an oracle consisting of the airline flight data information. And once it passes that 2-hour late mark, you automatically get paid without having to go through the process of filing your delay claim and waiting 30 days and all of that. But sometimes you have concepts like good faith efforts or I will, I'll do something that is not so easily verifiable. So have you seen any examples of that? And whether you have or not, how would that type of natural language concept be incorporated into an NFT smart contract?
So what we've seen are sort of the NFT licenses, kind of what Dapper Labs had created, I think, when they introduced CryptoKitties as like a standard NFT license, which is up, on the website, nftlicense.com, I believe it is. But there are also the ability to include PDFs with your NFT. So, for example, if you needed to clarify an agreement in more detail, you can do that through an accessible an accessible PDF attached to the NFT that is accessible by anybody viewing the NFT before purchase. You can also include things in an unlockable file, which then can be only accessed once someone purchases the NFT. That could, be something more of a broader scope of whatever's included in the NFT to kind of, finalize that contract between the purchase and also what's the expectations between both parties. Another thing that I've noticed, because, we've been dealing with music specifically, right? And also the fact that we're kind of acting as distributors. DAO Records is acting as a distributor on behalf of the artists. So this relationship is often something that is discussed through a call. A lot of it is trust-based, and sometimes artists prefer to have contracts written out in advance, which is something that we also do. And that idea of good faith in these sort of things is also like how companies and people in general build their reputations. And the reputation, I believe, is everything in this space. As soon as you do something that could tarnish that reputation, people kind of avoid you, and I see this commonly in the space, watching people like fall and then try and get up again, and the various scams that exist. I think that's within any industry where there's potential to make money and quite a wide gray area, so there's so many variations that can be explored. But at the same time, we're looking at like what is the evolution of the NFT, the smart contracts, and how various smart contracts can interconnect together in one that can be sort of like a customizable, bigger sort of container smart contract that, can have sort of various legal elements that maybe are specific to whatever form of content or item or whatever else is being delivered through the NFT.
That brings up something you and I discussed yesterday as well, and Walter was talking about it earlier, the virtual world concept. And I know that talking about the evolution of things, right? I think about, for example, 25 years ago when we started using electronic signatures, and there was legislation, the Federal eSign Act. Fast forward to today, companies like DocuSign, it has completely transformed the way we have dealt with the process of entering into contracts, right? NFTs, I think, have that same capability and can reach that point. But what's interesting is I think they will also have the potential to change the way we perform, and that the relationship continues. But in terms of the virtual space or the metaverse, I know you have space in CryptoVoxels, which I've visited, it's as Walter described, a whole universe of people with places, and you can walk around and see someone's NFT perhaps hanging on the wall, much like your picture behind you or mine behind me, but in a virtual space. What's the process for actually entering into a transaction in the virtual space? And what do you see next in the virtual space? And I'm specifically thinking about one of the things you mentioned to me about rentals and mortgages.
Yes. So I guess in the way that you can engage with content, which is primarily either NFTs or, image or audio or video content being displayed, let's say in a virtual gallery in CryptoVoxels, is that, the integration is getting to the point now where, let's say I embed my NFT in my CryptoVoxels parcel and people come into the parcel, they can actually click on it and experience the NFT. Let's say if it's music, they can experience that live within the virtual space. And then they can actually click and purchase that NFT. And so if I'm the one who's presenting the NFT in my space and that NFT leads to, a sale of my digital item, an NFT, then that automatically the payment will automatically go into my wallet. Whereas if I'm hosting other people's NFTs in my space, I'm not potentially earning a commission off of the sale of an NFT. That's supporting the various artists who I would like to showcase, in my gallery. So it works out, whereas you're also facilitating the sale of other people's NFTs, regardless of which space you're in, and say these virtual worlds, where it's kind of like creating community galleries in which people can participate in sales, but also in terms of looking at what we can do in not only the sale of NFTs virtually, but also the lease or the rental or the mortgage element, say, of an actual virtual parcel, say on CryptoVoxels as an NFT. There are certain EIPs that, these Ethereum.
What is that? What's an EIP? Explain an EIP.
Okay, it's an Ethereum. I forget what the I is actually, but it's a proposal for the Ethereum blockchain as to make changes, because the Ethereum is a virtual, a decentralized network, right? So there isn't sort of one CEO where someone would go and propose a change. So all these proposals go to the community, and through the proposal, then we can make decisions as a decentralized community, which is Ethereum, to decide what proposals to implement that can make changes to, let's say, the introduction of a new standard, a new NFT standard. So, for example, there's one that's up now that's specifically revolving around mortgages and rental contracts when it comes to NFTs. So if I have an NFT in my parcel and I want to rent that out to somebody, well, where's the contract for that? How does that work? And so people are developing these contracts based on the needs of the community, which I find very interesting, because I've got a bunch of parcels in CryptoVoxels and Somnium Space, as well as Sandbox, and to look at how we could, utilize these parcels in a way where you would, say, a traditional apartment building, right, where you would want to rent out units to people. What do those contracts look like? I think we're starting to get to the point now. I know that Sandbox specifically is going to be on their roadmap introducing the option to rent out your Sandbox lands, for example, and then what that contract is going to look like. I think these are the coming things that I find very interesting.
Sure. Yeah. Fascinating. That's exactly the type of evolution that I'm, thinking about. Where's it going, and what are we going to see next? Well, listen, Vandal, I really appreciate your time and your insight. I think we need to hand it off now. I don't know if there's any parting shots you wanted to give out. Otherwise, I'll turn it over to Eric.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you again for having me. And this is really exciting technology, and I think that we all need to work together from the various industries to find the solutions that work on the whole. So it's great to see the legal community taking charge and exploring the depths of NFTs and how smart contracts work. And I'm just soaking in all the information today. So I appreciate you. Thanks a lot.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I'll turn it over to you, Eric. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Andy. I'm Eric Schofer, patent attorney and partner in the Washington, D.C. office of Foley. I'm glad to be joined by Nidhi Nahar. She is the head of patents and open source at Square. She has significant experience in the patent space and seen the evolution of blockchain innovation. As Andy and Vandal were saying, NFTs are just a further iteration and evolution of that technology. And when we see a new technology, many of us are asking, what can we patent? What can be protected? In our session, we're going to explore both opportunities in patent protection as well as expected challenges and hurdles. So let's start by identifying some of the challenges, and then maybe by defining those challenges, it'll help us understand the white space for potential protection opportunities around them. So turning to patentability, there are two primary concerns here as patent attorneys that we consider. The first is prior art. Has anyone done this before? Is it an obvious variation of what's been done before? And the other one is patent eligibility. Is this a business method, or is it some conventional process that's merely being applied to a computer? So looking at prior art, NFT may have been patented under different terminology in the past. I've heard different terms, cryptographic digital asset. There's different ways of characterizing it, aside from using the terms NFT. But in the last few months in particular, there's been a drastic increase in the number of articles, certainly patent applications, and of course, tremendous amount of new NFTs that are hitting the marketplace and making the news. But most patent applications aren't even publicly available for 18 months. So it's challenging, if not impossible, to know what others are even protecting in this space. How should an innovator even approach this situation?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we should approach this like we do with any technology, right? Like, educate yourself, brainstorm on how it would apply to the industry you're in, and grab the white space when you can. I mean, these problems exist with literally every other technology as well. And what you do is you figure out the problems that you want to solve, and you learn about this technology, and you find solutions for it and file patent applications. The earlier, the better.
Do you think it's possible to even do a patentability search, or is there more value to just racing to the patent office at this point?
I think you can do a little bit of search, like I've been doing, attending webinars, getting a sense of from, the literature that's available, Google searches. But as you said, as far as the patent landscape is concerned and what people are filing, we won't know for a while.
So that's from the innovator's perspective. If we look at it from the patent office perspective, they typically lag when it comes to building expertise in new technology, building their database of prior art, having their go-to resources. So what are your expectations for the patent office over the next few months to the next few years here?
Yeah, I think it's going to take a while for them to get up to speed to the technology. And I think there'll be a little bit of lag with the guidance that they get on what the rules are for patentability, especially as it relates to NFTs. But I think what's been helpful in our experience is educating the examiners as we go along, right? If you want quality patents, you want them to be in a position to be able to understand the technology at the very least. So when you're doing those examiner interviews, explain to them, give them the resources, if you can offer them that, and that helps both the parties to get quality patents.
How long of a timeline did you think it took for blockchain technology to get to a point where you felt that the examiners were more comfortable examining that technology?
Yeah, it took like a year or so. But again, it was, I think the onus was a little bit on us too. Instead of like forcing them to learn this technology in a month's time or 2 months' time, you can help expedite that process and give them the resources that you had.
Great. So let's turn to eligibility. A few years ago, Supreme Court came out with a decision, Alice versus CLS Bank, that had a profound impact on really the software industry. And they clarified that merely applying a process to a computer isn't enough for patentability. NFT innovations may experience challenges to the extent they merely resemble a blockchain transaction, that we're just conducting another transaction that just happens to be on the blockchain, no different than what's been done in the past. There are some aspects that might help overcome this patent eligibility hurdle to show that it's more than just applying a computer. And those innovations might be around how NFTs may be minted or how they're utilized, displayed, probably more so than looking at the underlying media included in that NFT, and whether it's a song or a shoe or a piece of artwork. So you've successfully obtained many patents on blockchain innovations. Are there particular features here that you think might have an easier path to overcoming this patent eligibility hurdle?
Yeah, so I think with the broader blockchain technology, what we've noticed is, again, focusing on the technical advantages that are brought out by the infrastructure itself. For example, if you talk about speeding up transactions in a certain way based on the infrastructure you've created, or if you're able to now have a cross-border transaction functionality that you could not possibly attain with traditional payment models, you focus on that. I think another thing that would be helpful is I think what would be exciting here is to see the marriage of NFTs with these other technologies, right? NFTs in and of itself might not be patentable, but NFTs with smart contracts, NFTs with, or like DeFi broadly, NFTs with AR, VR, like in the world of gaming, if you obtain all these tokens, could you then create, and I think someone earlier spoke about this, could you then create a unique gaming experience? I think focusing on that interplay between what we already know and what Nifty could bring to the table and highlighting that in the patent application with these different advantages, I think would be compelling for the patent office.
Yeah, I think that's a great segue to the areas of innovation here, because from a patent attorney's perspective, all these things really kind of tie together. It's the, when we find what makes that innovation so special, that's oftentimes the core aspect that helps us distinguish it from the prior art, from overcoming the patent eligibility concerns. And it's where we're going to find the white space here. And I think a lot of that infrastructure, the platforms, the broader use of it has a tremendous amount of potential here. So, now we have new avenues for artists to sell their art and new ways to track ownership and various uses of the blockchain for conducting transactions. You started mentioning a few places that might be particularly interesting for overcoming eligibility, which are also going to be great areas for innovation. Are there other areas of innovation around NFTs that you think are worth exploring, or we expect to see some interesting innovation?
Yeah, so I think when we talk about innovation, if you want an understanding into where it is that the industries may be headed, at least I am looking for clues in these webinars and in the literature that I'm reading in conferences, and seeing what it is that people are highlighting as problems in the space, like what are the problems that we want to solve. And the common themes that I've, at least few of the common themes that I've seen are these. So one is counterfeiting, right? Like everyone wants to figure out what I'm buying is the true and authentic copy, that it is one of a kind as it claims to be. I think that's particularly important in the luxury space or space where you have high ticket items, where you would look for a single source of truth, right? A provenance establishing database. We're already seeing a lot of innovation in that space, and I think we'll continue to see that. There's some chatter about Nifty watermarking to establish that. So I think that's one area. The other, which is a little bit controversial, I understand, is the world of making Nifties more energy efficient, right? And then again, we're already seeing innovation in that space with Ethereum moving from proof of work to proof of stake. we mentioned Dapper Labs, which is also a proof of stake consensus platform. So I think we'll see a lot more in that space as well to reduce the carbon footprint of the transactions. I think another would be, speaking from the world of music, might be in fractional ownership, determining if certain pieces of music in this whole song have a higher value than the other, and like having valuation models for that. Payments, which is sort of close to my world, I would imagine, again, like a merge between your traditional credit card, debit card rails, and nifty rails, in determining which one is more efficient for a specific use case and dynamically picking that. For cross-border transactions, you may have one that's better than the other. So I think those are some of the areas. And then, of course, there's a lot more if you start going into the world of gaming and sports. There'll be a lot more innovation in that space as well. It's really exciting.
Yeah. Along those lines, Andy and Vandal mentioned rentals and licensing NFTs. I think that's another area that's ripe for innovation, and for those keeping track of these potential ideas, so they could run back to the whiteboard to add a few others to the list. We have things to include in a new minted NFT package. The considerations around the uniqueness of an NFT when you say it's the only copy, but you actually have the ability to mint more of the same. How we display the NFT on your phone or a screen, and bragging rights to your friends when you actually get to show it to them. The use of the NFT ownership audit trail and actually following the ownership of it. As Louis and Walter were discussing earlier, there are different players. There's content creators, there's payment providers, what Nidhi was saying, smart contracts, channel partners, and there's potential in all of those spaces. Blockchain use has significantly increased in the last few years, but I don't think it's really been part of the average person's lifestyle, unless maybe they're part of this wild ride of cryptocurrency investments. And I'm curious to see the reaction to Louis' question at the beginning, to see who actually has some investment there. But now someone can actually see the use of blockchain and directly interact with it when they purchase the NFT of a video of their favorite athletes, such as on Top Shot. So NFTs are kind of bringing it to the masses. We've seen NFTs in various industries, art and music and clothing, and even IPWE as a patent ownership system that they've launched and are thrown out there for consideration. Do you see NFTs as being limited to only particular industries? Is this sort of a bubble or an overreaction, or do you really see this as the beginning of a broader adoption of this technology?
For sure. I think I was just reading this morning an article about nifty diamonds, right? Who would have thought? I think what you're saying is key, though, right? Like usability. I think with Cash App too, having an easy tool that lets you invest makes the adoption of all investment tools that much better. So I think it's really going to be fascinating to watch what the industry players do, how they make it something that's usable for everyone. And I definitely don't see it limited to certain industries. I also think that it may not be nifty like 5 years from now. It may be something else in spirit. But I think just the idea of this specific technology is really fascinating. And I think it's here to stay.
Nidhi, you mentioned earlier provenance. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you mean by provenance and the importance of it, whether we're talking about art or music or some sort of collectible?
Yeah, I think, as I was saying, I think one of the things that everyone wants to know is what I have was owned by a certain individual, like if it is the first tweet of Jack that's sold to me, it is in fact the first tweet and I'm the only owner of it. Or there are 5 other owners with me who are participants of this ownership model. So I think whether it's music or art or, as I said, luxury item, I think this idea of knowing who owned it and who will own it in the future and creating that trail, I think would be really interesting. And that's something that's common across all these industries, right? So when you were asking about if it's going to be specific to a certain industry, I think regardless of what industry you're in, everyone is sort of solving the same problem, which is why I think there would be a greater adoption.
Great. We only have a couple minutes left. I think there are lots of issues in this patent space that could be addressed. I think we've highlighted that there are going to be some hurdles. There's prior art that we're not sure really what's out there yet. That could maybe it was filed a few days before your patent application, maybe a month or so, or maybe goes by a different name from a few years ago. There's going to be some issues with how we how we focus on that particular technology and whether it's something that's really innovative or really a conventional use with a different type of underlying media, and that's going to be more challenging. But there are plenty of spaces here to innovate and to get patent protection. One thing that we also consider as patent attorneys that we don't really have time to discuss here is that we also want to target infringers. We want to see that we can detect infringement. So if we get too deep into what's visible here, we want to make sure that we're going to actually be able to see that someone's infringing without doing too much due diligence, too much legwork to find that out. And likewise, we want to focus our patent applications on a particular target, and we want to think about who that target is. Likely not the user, probably not the artist, but we want to think about who that's going to be. Nidhi, do you have any closing thoughts before we pass the baton?
No, I mean, this is an exciting space. I think there's a lot of innovation to be done. A note of caution here is just because you're patenting something doesn't mean it has to be translated into a product strategy. I mean, that's the beauty of patents. You innovate, you brainstorm, you put it all in a patent application and decide not to productize that, and that's fine. But thank you so much for having me here, Eric. Thank you,
Nidhi. Thanks for your contributions. So patents are just one piece of intellectual property we need to consider. Now let's pass it over to Laura and Darren to talk about trademark and copyright issues.
Thank you so much, Eric. I'm Laura Ganoza. I'm a partner with Foley's Miami office, and I'd like to thank everybody for sticking around for our last session. We promised to make it entertaining. So as I mentioned, I'm in Miami. I head up our firm's fashion, apparel, and beauty group. And I've been following this space as it relates to the fashion industry, and it's super interesting. And yes, digital fashion is a thing, but we're going to talk a little more on the entertainment side of things. And with that, I'm excited that we have here Darren Traub here today. He's the Senior Vice President of Business and Legal Affairs and Entertainment and Talent Management at WWE. That's a mouthful. Darren oversees all legal aspects of WWE's TV, film, music, special events, talent management, celebrity guest appearances, and he also manages their interactive gaming, streaming, social media, digital assets, and most importantly for us today, their NFT releases for WWE's talent. So welcome, Darren. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
So before we get started, let's talk a little bit about kind of just to set the stage about some of the IP issues that are not patent issues involved. And the thing that comes to my mind, I don't know if you guys remembered this, but during quarantine, I remember watching this video of Nathan Apodaca, but I guess he's known as Dogface, a TikTok star who became TikTok famous because he was skateboarding down a highway, lip syncing to Fleetwood Mac's Dream song, and he was drinking ocean spray, cranberry juice, and it became this viral, huge sensation. I know it made me happy watching it. Fleetwood Mac actually, I think Mick Fleetwood actually did a parody of his own self doing that. The Dogface got a truckload, literal, actual, real, brand new truck and a truckload of ocean spray juice from Ocean Spray. So it became a big deal. And recently he announced that he wanted to do an NFT of this very famous viral video. But the NFT that's going to come out is an NFT with the logo of Ocean Spray blurred out, so you can't tell it's that, and also without the music. So this is what brings up the topics that, you know, you and I are going to be talking about here today, Darren, the IP issues and trademark and copyrights as they relate to NFTs. And this was just one example. And we didn't play the song because you guys are just going to have that song in your head the rest of the day, which is what happens every time I watch it. So we'll save you that. But Darren, why don't you talk about some of the cool stuff that you've done at WWE and in your prior life to just set the stage about that, and then we can kind of go through a couple in more detail.
Yeah, sure. So I guess I first heard about NFTs probably back in 2018, and the first NFT kind of project that I worked on was the Coachella's NFT project in 2019, and that was if you bought a Coachella ticket, you got this app. You were sort of given these NFT versions of what I call digital tchotchkes at the time. No one really thought that they had much value to it other than to like stunt out to your friends that you were going to Coachella. And then what was really neat is when you were actually at Coachella, they had kind of this digital scavenger hunt that you could go around and collect other NFTs by exploring stages and interactions. Some of it was done with sponsors so that you would download NFTs related to the sponsors. Others was unlocking various tokens and memorabilia regarding the artists that were on stage. I've also then kind of worked as a consultant on Little Nas X's NFT project, Columbia Records NFT project, Logan Paul's big drop with regarding his Pokemon cards, an upcoming project for Tiger King. But the big one that I did was obviously here at WWE in connection with WrestleMania, which was back in April, is WrestleMania 37. We unleashed our first NFT, which was a 3-tiered drop of an NFT regarding The Undertaker. Some of it had real-world merchandise and value that went in with it. Obviously, we had a rarity 1 of 1. Then we had a silver level that was 37, so you get 1 of 37. And then we had a bronze-tiered level, which didn't have any real-world merch attached to it, but it clearly had some value because we sold over 1,615 minutes at $100 each of that one. With regards to that, I literally designed the whole drop, figured out kind of what we could and couldn't use, what would make these drops sell, how to market it in terms of our one-on-one, which was kind of our exclusive crypto drop. And then the smaller drops, which are really geared more towards our WWE fans, to shape and market those two differently. So I love NFTs. I'm a firm believer in them. Like everyone else, I think there is a bubble, but I do think that what emerges after the bubble will be long form and long term here. So I'm excited to have this discussion with you.
Well, why don't we talk about the Undertaker NFT, and we have a little short video to show what it looks like so you guys can check it out. Hopefully I'll do the technology correctly, but here goes.
There is a chill in the air that signifies the arrival of the one and only, the Phenom, the Undertaker.
All right, so let's unpack that. There's a lot there. So first you have a voiceover, right? Then you have the instrumental music playing. Then you have the actual, image of in an animated image that had to be, created. Then you also have the Undertaker himself, his image. So talk about the different IP elements involved and how you dealt with all of them to create that final product that we just saw.
Yeah, sure. So that was our silver drop that you saw. That was that one. We had a gold drop that even went even further. It was obviously different imagery, all of that with, again, the music, the voiceover, Undertaker, etc. And then it went to a famous clip of Undertaker throwing another talent of ours, Mankind, off of a 30-foot cage. And so that one even had other stuff that went with it. But yeah, so when we were first designing the drop, right, the first question we kind of had was, okay, whose rights and images do we have? Well, first of all, it was even better. It was like, who's actually going to sell, right? So that was kind of the big things, like, who are you going to work with that's going to sell? We had a list of about 10 different talent that we thought would be perfect for our first drop. Then it was, okay, whose rights do we have in connection with either, licenses or intellectual property? The big question we first had was we did have some people's licenses for use in consumer products. And then the question really became, is this NFT a consumer product or are you selling something different? And really because we were selling with the NFT, you're selling the token, and then everything that goes in the smart contract. So we had different stuff in our gold drop. We had an experience at a WrestleMania of your choice to fly you and your family first class, get front row seats, go backstage. Also a signed Undertaker title belt that Undertaker would present in a cameo video to you and whoever else had it. And then and then a signed Paul Bearer urn that went with it. So that was kind of the gold tier drop. The silver one that you saw came with signed Undertaker plates and a personalized video as well. And so that sort of first came the question, like, do we have these rights to use? And because it was still kind of unclear whether this is really a consumer product or is it something different, i.e. some sort of blockchain crypto token, we decided to play it safe and go with the Undertaker because we have a lot of rights in Taker. Plus, we worked with him and talked to him and made sure he was okay with it because obviously we wanted to use him and his social media in helping to market it. But also because he is one of our superstar talents, we didn't want to unnecessarily upset him. So the first thing that we did was find, okay, do we have the rights in the individual? Then the second was the music. So we wanted to use part of his theme song. So we, thankfully, we own those publishing rights in it. And we specifically decided not to use any of the lyrical aspects of some of his entrance music because that would then unleash an entire thing with getting songwriter clearance rights and whether this is really a sync license or a mechanical license. And we can get into that in a few minutes with regards to how you create these kind of music license rights with the NFT. Then the voiceover, we had to go see that, okay, yes, we actually have rights from this specific announcer. And thankfully with that, we had all clearances for all purposes, now known or wherever comes in the future, because that particular one was about 20 years ago. So we wanted to make sure we had those clearance rights. Obviously, we had Taker's imagery in it. In connection with that, as you saw, there was some neat artwork and some new digital stuff that went with it. So we needed to get full work for hire releases from the digital artists that helped us create that imagery. Then because we were marketing it, that it came with a Paul Bearer urn, we wanted to make sure that we had the right to utilize Paul Bearer's name in connection with the marketing of this NFT token. And then in our gold one, because we were throwing another talent who was not necessarily in there off of the cage, we had to make sure we actually had the footage rights, the footage license, and to, again, use it for any and all purposes. And then once we sort of went through that entire checklist, we came up with this was our collection of the NFTs that we could utilize.
That's a lot. Okay. Well, that's good because that kind of explains all the different levels of the IP that may be involved. But then that's just like getting the NFT together, right? Then you had to actually put it somewhere, as we'd been talking about before, so where did you put it and how did you actually send it out? And then were there any issues that you had to deal with based on the platform that you chose to use?
Yeah, so we had the same, again, so with connection with this drop, we wanted to have a two token drop. So one was our kind of rarity to go after those crypto whales, you know, someone that was going to buy a high dollar value, likely in ETH as a crypto investment. Also recognizing that I wanted to get a lot of WWE fans that probably have no idea what an ETH or Bitcoin wallet even is, much less an NFT. And so I wanted to also take my purchase to be able to do in credit card, which is what most of our fans would have, not an ETH wallet. And so in looking at that, we were deciding how to do this drop in a way that we could gather both. So what we decided to do is we were going to, you could buy, when you did your bid on it, you put down 10% on a credit card, but you can close in ETH. But again, we wanted to sort of control all the rights, including all the branding with it. So on this one, we particularly decided to go with a white label platform so that everything would reside on our platform and that we weren't putting it out onto an OpenSea or a Nifty gateway and kind of leave it out there. But again, because, you know, you do sell a lot of these things for money, we also recognize that there's a lot of value in the secondary market sales. And so we specifically looked for and wrote it into our contracts that we obviously would get a percentage of all secondary market sales. So we wanted to look for a partner that could track those secondary market sales, but I wanted that secondary market to be out on the open gateway where we, you know, our white label platform is not a Dapper, it's not a Fanaply, it's not meant to be a trading marketplace. So I wanted to sell it where I could brand it, market it myself on my first platform so that it's sort of retained on my internal blockchain, but I wanted my purchaser to be able to take it out onto a secondary platform, particularly in this case was OpenSea, because we can track secondary market sales and still get a piece of the secondary market. But we were very sure to make sure that because of the rights that were involved, specifically with the music that was involved in it, because we wanted to make sure that we were using it as a sync license and not making reproductions every single time someone took it on a different marketplace, and therefore making a new masters and thus needing another mechanical license to do it. Even if you remove it from your wallet and or our platform and you put it on OpenSea, the music still resides on a closed blockchain system so that it's not repeatedly making copies and thus triggering yet another IP need.
Okay, so those are all a lot of considerations, and so, but not all platforms kind of talk to each other, right? So you have to build those kinds of things into your smart contracts and then make sure that the other platform will kind of like recognize that, right?
Correct. Yeah, this is, so when a brand is building an NFT drop, the first thing it needs to, you know, obviously consider is what are the platforms that it's going to be in, so that you know where this NFT is going, you know what rights are being channeled through the different platforms, you know whether there are copies that are somehow being made. What are you actually selling? Are you selling the token, or are you selling truly the digital item itself? You know, or is there something else that you're selling, like in the case with Logan, when he was then really selling first generation Pokemon cards in connection with the smart contract. Once you sort of know then what the technology is about where your NFT is going to sit and how it's going to transfer, then you can start designing the product itself and recognize better the IP rights about where those will reside. Because most of these really are selling a token, and it's a little bit of a misnomer, but you're not really buying the digital item, even though the token is represented by the digital item. And so even though that's the case, you still need to make sure that you are not unnecessarily triggering any IP rights by making copies or allowing someone actually to make a physical reproduction on their back end as well.
Okay, so why don't you tell us, you have some upcoming things going on. I know you can't tell us too much. You want to keep people in suspense, but tell us a little bit, and if there's any particular IP issues that are on the horizon for that.
Yeah, so we will likely be doing another NFT drop with SummerSlam, which will hopefully If my contract gets signed today, will be in August, and we'll have something similar to that one. But we're also designing 2 other NFT projects, at least internally right now. One will be something similar to a Dapper Top Shots moment. I keep calling it our Top Rotes moment. So it will be a version of collectibles. The second will be likely an NFT trading card platform. The idea sort of being that, if you get the Darren card, because no one wants the Darren card, so we're going to make 1 million of them because they're worthless, and you can bind these cards to trade up to something a little bit more exciting and rare. There is some intrinsic ideas about whether you want to do that, because if you do that, you burn out the Darren card. So the more people do that, the rarer the Darren card becomes. The third thing is going to be a vertical NFT sort of platform that will cross all of our different marketplaces. The idea sort of being that if you buy a ticket to, say, my WrestleMania event next year as an NFT ticket, then I know where you are on the blockchain. So a few days later, I can send you a digital moment from that WrestleMania. So the only way that you could have gotten it was by going and buying a ticket. And then I can put in real world at least value within that. So maybe in my example, you buy a ticket to WrestleMania, you get this token. By getting this token, what you get is a code to unlock an upgrade in my my WrestleMania or my WWE 2K22 video game. And so whether if you have the game, that's great, then you get to unlock this. If you don't, you'll go sell it to a kid that doesn't have it. By unlocking that skin, you now get access to some other products. So maybe you can get a t-shirt, you can get a shoe. And so it's a way for us to continue to market directly to a consumer. And for the consumer who has this NFT to decide, is this something that I want to keep and purchase? Or do I then want to go sell the ability to obtain that out on the secondary market and continue to kind of flip the NFT as the value of it changes over time?
Well, and I think that's something that's really interesting about NFTs. It doesn't really necessarily have to do with the law, but just for any brand owners sitting on this call, it's a real possibility to engage with your consumers in a really unique way and a personal way, especially in this age where everybody wants to be super unique individual. For you to say that you own something from your favorite brand that only you own, I think that is so powerful. And I think, regardless of whether there's a bubble or not, I think that kind of personal interaction is something that brands are always looking for. So I think that part of it will stick around, I hope.
Yeah, I think that NFTs is digital artwork. So putting a Provence on a piece of digital art has truly created a new version of art, and that I think will forever be around. I think the NFT as a collectible, these kind of NFT collectible moments, I think that's the bubble that everyone's kind of talking about. But I think NFTs as a way for brands or artists or musicians to communicate directly with its fans, I think we're just scratching the surface, because I think a lot of people look at this and going from the fans' perspective, an NFT is a way to authenticate that this digital good came directly from from my brand. I think from a brand's perspective, it's a great way to collect data from your fans, to trace what they're buying, what they're interacting with, what works and doesn't work. You can easily pivot if something doesn't work, because you can change the blockchain. So I think it really is just getting started as a brand integration tool.
Yeah, and our last little slide here, here's just an example of the model, Emily Radikowski. She was complaining a lot that her image is taken from her. So she went ahead, she did her own NFT, which is like so many different layers of different, images with her there. And she called it, I guess, Reclaiming My Image or something like that. She just sold it, I think it's for $140,000. And so that's like a direct way, talking to her fans, talking to her fan base about that. So I don't think that's going away. We're running out of time, but I'll give you the last word on this. Is there any parting words you want to say, Darren, before we close out?
Yeah, I just think when you're getting into the space, there was a lot of hype in the last few months about mostly the Dapper Labs, which was phenomenal, the Beeple artwork, which again was also phenomenal. And I think most people confuse it. NFT is just this digital version that if I stick something out there, it's going to sell for millions. And I think really what it is, it's truly a tool for brands and artists to kind of cut out the middlemen and communicate and speak directly with its true fans. And I think if you're a brand and you look at it that way, there is, like, you know, the sky's the limit on what you can do with these things.
Well, great. Well, thank you for being here. And I'm going to hand it over to John Israel for some closing words.
Thank you, Laura and Darren. Good stuff. Really, really interesting. And just want to close out and thank everybody for joining us today. I thought it was a really interesting and dynamic discussion. A special thank you, of course, to our guest speakers for participating and sharing their experiences and perspectives. And as I say, I think it was just a real fascinating and interesting discussion. And I think, as Darren said, it seemed like we're just scratching the surface on, you know, what the use of NFTs can mean, you know, in areas like sports and entertainment, certainly from my perspective. So really good stuff. Thanks also to the Foley marketing and tech personnel who helped us put all this together. You guys did a great job. Just want to let everybody know that this entire presentation will be available for viewing soon on Foley.com. So if you need to come back or you have colleagues that want to take a look at the program, it will be up on our website. I'm told we got a lot of really, really great questions in the chat. So we're going to sit through that and hopefully get back to all of you who asked some questions that we weren't able to answer today directly on the program. So we will be in touch. And of course, if any of you out there have any questions or follow-up, please just reach out directly to one of us here at Foley. All our contact information is at Foley.com and on the invites, etc. And in the meantime, just want to thank you again for being here. And you know, we hope this will be an ongoing program of sorts. And so we look forward to seeing all of you again real soon. Thanks so much.